What's up, everybody? It's another Indy Investor Pod, and we're back for part two, kind of talking about the central part of Indianapolis here and kind of what it holds for investors. I got Sterling, I got Dave, and I have Steve Lehman here with me again today. I'm just kind of talking about all those stuff of kind of what investors can look for, the different areas, the different neighborhoods, what they see from it, some tips, some tricks, those types of things as well and stuff. So we're going to kind of focus on the north part of the downtown today. So kind of Crown Hill, Riverside, Kennedy King, Mapleton, Fall Creek, kind of all some of those areas and stuff like that too. So with that, let's get to it. All right, fellas, thank you so much for joining me again. I know this is kind of silly of me to kind of think that we'd be able to get all this one area done in 20, 35 minutes or right around that time. You guys are as much talkers as I am, so I should have known that we could have just kept talking and talking, but it's all right. We break things into 2 episodes around here, and that's good to go. So I want to get back into talking about, you guys had just some awesome insights, and I really appreciate it on some of the areas we talked about on the last episode, from talking about Willard Park and Fountain Square and some of those areas and going street by street, block by block, those types of things. We're getting into kind of some of the neighborhoods here, just kind of north of the downtown now. So let's kind of take those, kind of that little pocket that we have just north of that downtown, where we have kind of like the near north, the old north side, Kennedy King, Heron Morton, those areas right in there. So what are you guys seeing? Kind of what's your initial kind of thought of like, man, what can I do here? Or what am I seeing from, whether it's rental or flip or anything like that? So I know, Dave, that's kind of, I think of those areas like good flip areas. So let's just kind of start with you and kind of what you're seeing on some of those areas and stuff.
Well, I haven't went in those areas on flipping. We've done a couple, what I would call wholesale deals, that we had bought stuff that we thought we would flip and then had an opportunity to make, a pretty fair profit. My kind of goal is in any house that I buy to flip, if I can make half of what I think my potential profit is going to be doing the full rehab, then I'll sell it as a wholesale deal. So we've had a couple areas in there that we bought really right, so we end up wholesaling it. So, but a couple of them that I did wholesale, the people did very, very well on the flipping aspect of the property that we sold them. So there again, I'm still looking at those areas as more pioneer areas, more entry-level flippers, because cost of entry over there is pretty good. Crown Hill, pretty solid little neighborhood, and the price of entry is still pretty fair over there. And so I like those areas. They're not areas that we've went as yet.
Yeah. So let's kind of bring it back down. I know, and we can talk about like Crown Hill here in a little bit, but if we're just kind of talking about, kind of that Heron Morton, I would say kind of the north side, Kennedy King, if anybody's doing any deals around there or even wholesaling or doing any of those types of deals, what are you guys seeing from, are there people putting residences in there mostly, or are you guys doing any deals to maybe for people turning it into office space, or what are you guys really seeing from around any of those areas? Any insight on that?
Yeah, I mean, so when I look at those, that's almost like a combination of going from an A, B neighborhood-ish, you know what I mean? When you start talking about an area that home ownership is, 65, 75, 85 and above, so that kind of tells you who those people are. You see a lot of, knock down and build them back up. Also, I've had a couple of clients that have done some house hacking in those areas. Where they're getting a duplex and they're renting off one side of the duplex. That area is just kind of harder to make it make sense, especially when you start talking at that B plus, like that Heron Morton, that old north side, especially for it to really make sense on your cash flow. So, because those rents are, you might get $1,500 in rent for a 4-bedroom or $1,800, but you're buying it for $235,000 or $300,000. So. On the holding side, it just really doesn't make as much sense to me.
Yeah, so that's why I kind of think of that area. I think families, and I think of businesses. I see a lot of businesses coming in there and stuff like that now. So that's what I kind of see from that aspect and things. So Steve, are you looking at a lot of houses in those areas for clients and stuff right now?
Actually, that's one area that I never went into. I mean, other than going in, looking at things, but not actually doing anything in. I just never really, I never cared for it, but it's a great area to live. It's businesses have expanded. I remember a lot of those houses were just wrecks a long time ago, and I'm talking probably about 7-8 years ago. And it's come around quite well, and people can do very well over there. Dave's right though. It's kind of, you got to be careful what you do on things when it comes to flipping. So buy and holds, not so much. It's a flip area for sure, and it's definitely in an A-B type of area.
Yeah.
Well, you have to deal with the historical societies over there. So,
Yeah.
and that really can put a damper on permitting and approvals, and down to colors. So, it can be very, very frustrating that you're dealing with people who are not concerned about your bottom line, and that makes flipping very, very difficult to do.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I probably should have mentioned that last episode with the St. Clair Place and stuff. That's one of the reasons why it just doesn't. It's a pain in the butt.
Yeah, it's got a nice little name on it when you're trying to, get a deal or look at a deal or something like that. But looking at all those things is tough. And I know we'll kind of even talk about it. I know Dave's had an experience when we get into Irvington, even on the east side and some of those areas and stuff as well. What do you guys think about? Do you guys have any experience as far as like one area that I can't quite figure out is the friends and neighbors area. So I've had awesome deals there where my investors have done amazing things, and other deals where I looked at it and looked on paper, it looked like the exact same thing, and then I could not sell it for anything. And
well, let me ask, man, how's East 25th Street going?
Yeah, well, what happens with that? That's actually, so it's a great property. I guess it comes down to, and that's really what it comes down to is does it have a place for a garage, or is there parking on the street? And that's where it comes into street by street and kind of what's going on. So it's a great property, great opportunity, but when it doesn't have parking, that's what happens with stuff like that. So
yep, no, I agree. I think we have several projects in the Friends and neighborhood that's kind of going on right now. I mean, you got to buy it right. You just have to buy it right. We got it for a great price from some wholesalers, and once again, for some reason, like in those areas, we've been doing a lot of like duplexes and multifamilies. You see the progress happening, but I think what suffers sometime and lags behind is that rental rate. So you see these houses selling and you see these numbers that it's hitting, but I still think the rental rate is kind of lagging behind in those areas. So you kind of have to be careful when you start trying to do these huge developments.
Well, the crime aspect for me really plays a big play in those neighborhoods that makes me initially want to stay away. And because the house has to be perfect, has to be a unique place for that area. Like you said, you can't let anything go. You can't let parking go. You can't let a place for a garage to go. You can't, security is a big issue there. So I think you have to have fencing, you have to have garages, you have to have access to your, I think you have to plan on having access from your garage to your house that's a safe zone. And some of those areas, that's really hard to do. And the house next door, you've got, 5-6 guys hanging out and 4 or 5 motorcycles in the yard. I'm going to be a little concerned about buying the best house there for hardly anything. So, everything, even more so than like in Irvington or Fountain Square, everything plays into the house. So, right.
So let's kind of jump across the creek there, the water there, and let's talk about, kind of Mapleton Fall Creek area. I know that's one of the first areas I kind of heard of when I started looking into real estate and started getting into this game. I heard about Fountain Square and Bates Hendricks, but then right away, everybody's kind of like, oh, Mapleton Fall Creek is kind of where you need to look and talk about that. So it's one of the first things that I heard about. And I think it's kind of one of those I've honestly seen too, of like, it was the buzzword for a little bit, then it fell off, and then it's come back. It's kind of coming on and off throughout the last 3 years of what I've seen. But what are you guys thinking as far as, and it's kind of a big area too, is what people consider that kind of Mapleton Fall Creek area. But what do you see like certain areas or certain pockets that are good for rentals, or certain pockets that are good for flips, or just investing in general?
Yeah, I can go. I mean, on the rental side, I think there, like you said, there's pockets, right? Like in I've been burned, giving advice in this area, because the rental comps, we had the one on Washington Boulevard. Dave walked it. The rental comps was showing 1,200 plus. for multifamily units and things. So I was like, oh my God, look at the street. These houses are huge, like 1,200, and you're buying it for 300. This is awesome. Didn't take into account that it had like the 1,200 included all utilities, and so it was so many factors that played a part in that. And then when I went over to like, we have a couple on, it's called like, I can't think of the name of the street, but we're struggling getting $1,000 plus. So these investors that are burrowing in those neighborhoods, it's really hard right now to kind of get that $1,000 rent plus. I know many people know from the out-of-state group, Paul Beats, he has a house over there, and we rented out, and it was at 1,300 because that's where he bought it from. But at the end of the day, we kind of had to drop it, and now it's renting at like 1050. But that's a huge discount compared to what he kind of perceived that area to be. So I think if you're an investor looking for the Mapleton Fall Creek area, I think if you're going above 1,000, you should, be cautious.
Don't you have to have what I call a pretty street over there to get that kind of money?
Oh, absolutely.
Central Penn, those kind of areas.
We've had, for example, like on Penn, we have a 8-unit that we manage over there, and it's gorgeous. And the houses are $500,000, but we have a 1-bedroom, 1-bath 8-unit. You know what I mean? Like that's just a completely different experience than these huge $500,000 houses.
So I do think there is some opportunity for some of the multifamilies over in those areas and stuff too. I'm not just plugging that because we have a 9-unit available over there now, but no, I think it's something that I like those over there because I like the smaller multifamilies, just in general and stuff like that. But I do think there is some opportunities where there's some good sections of some of that stuff that's over there. So it's something you can kind of look for in that area as well that I think is going to do pretty well for you and have some pretty good numbers for you. So Steve, I know you kind of know that area pretty well and stuff. So what are you seeing from that area, and how would you advise investors to go kind of proceed when you go into that area?
Well, you were right from the get-go. It's an on and off area. It always has been. I've watched it for years, and it's just been, we could never figure it out. We were there in 13, and we tried and failed. Just it happened. We sold a couple houses turnkey. They've done very well. Had the owner of one of the turnkeys complain because her taxes went through the roof. Well, her property appraised through the roof too. So, I mean, you're you made money, and that's what happens. But with that being said, it is a hit or miss over there. You don't know what the area is doing. In 6 months, it's a great area. The next 6 months, it's just kind of like, maybe. The further west you go is a nicer, section. The further north up by 38th Street, you're getting better over there. But the further south you go, it gets a little bit rougher. And when you get more like on Broadway, is that Broadway? Yeah. Broadway.
Yep.
Yeah, down over there. When you get over in that section over there, now you're looking at it at being, about 31st Street and 29th and all that area over there. It can get sketchy. People's houses are getting broken into, and then furnaces are getting stolen and stuff like that. And that's just the reality of it. It really is. You got to be cautious when you're in the Mapleton Fall Creek area. It can be done. It definitely can be. And Sterling was right about the rents. You just don't know what you're going to get. And it's all based on where your property is located. And I think some people make this stuff out to be better than what it really is. They say, hey, it's Mapleton Fall Creek. It's like saying it's in Fountain Square. It's like, well, come on. Let's be real about it. So,
yeah. So I kind of see the same thing for that kind of Watson McCord. I like that area a lot. I think it's an opportunity where you can flip some houses, you can rent some houses pretty easily and stuff like that. But it's the same thing. You're going to have some of those opportunities where they are good opportunities and stuff like that. And I advise people to, invest there, but you still have to worry about some of that, just that crime and things that happen in those areas. So it's tough. And we just had one broken into, furnace and the whole kitchen and everything ripped out of it. We kind of knew that was going to happen, or that was an option or a possibility in that area. But at the same time too, we can fix it back up, and it's going to rent pretty well in that area. So let's kind of move over to it's actually one of my favorite areas in Indianapolis right now, just to invest. It has been for a couple of years, just because I've kind of seen it starting to turn, and there's nothing there, which I think is even funnier. But the Crown Hill area. So you have the cemetery and stuff there, and I always try to like tell people like, oh yeah, it's a good opportunity. I think kind of what Dave was saying earlier of like it's kind of like a twin air where you can pick up a property pretty cheap and maybe pick it up for like between 30 and 50, put around 30 into it and sell it for probably in between 100 and 130 somewhere around there. Some have been going for a little higher in there, but I try to advise people on like, hey, well, people always ask me, well, what's in Crown Hill? What is it? I'm like, nothing. It's like 3 streets of houses. That's it. So, but I like it. I think people can get some good value and stuff there. What are you guys seeing from the Crown Hill area?
I love it. I mean, it's there again, it's such a short, it's a small section. So just south of there, but all through there. And, that area kind of ties in just north of 38th right there. We're not talking about that area, but they're very comparable areas that pricing has went up a lot. And, that Crown Hill's going to get finished before any of the other areas over there. So Crown Hill will be nicer, quicker than Maple Creek, Mapleton, type areas. So, yeah, it's it's a great entry level flipping house because you can go pretty conservatively up to 130 on a house done right.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's always about like looking at indicators when you're holding real estate. You know what I mean? So places that don't have things like that do, scare me. I know when I first got in this, 10 years ago, the indicator that people were trying to drive from was, well, it's right next to the Children's Museum. I was like, well, I mean, that makes it very transit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to know like who's living there. Like, so for me in a whole neighborhood, if I could get somewhere about 50-50 home ownership, 50-50 rental, that's what I'm kind of looking for, but over the years, this has really came back. At one point, I think it was probably 70% rentals. And now I think it's probably getting closer and closer to that 50%. So the neighborhood has changed a lot, and I think a lot of that has to do with just government buildings. Like, the government, 3-5 years ago, they gave some money that they, to build some houses over there. So that helped progress the neighborhood, I feel, a lot for it. But when it comes to the rental market over there, you still have to be very careful just because the crime rate is still very high.
Yeah,
I like that.
I think there's some deals over there that can be had still. With Crown Hill, I think there's opportunity for sure. I agree with Dave and Sterling and everything. I've always liked Crown Hill too. It's just that little section that you just, you look at it on, like I'm on the MLS, I just look at it and go, it's just one of those things that it's like, yeah. And then you get over there, you drive through it. And once again, street by street, but there's some real nice sections over there, and that should bleed into the other areas too. So yeah.
You see, I think all the transition of everything that's going on in there, like Sterling said, even to that kind of south of Crown Hill, I like to call it kind of the Highland vicinity, kind of right around that Children's Museum. There's some cool things that are going on there. The year ago, this time, I never would have walked down them on my own, like in the streets, but now, like there's some pretty good stuff going in. So it's kind of that transition. I think the red line has helped out a lot of that stuff. Kind of once they started putting that in, so that's been good. Let's kind of move over to, I know everybody seems to have an opinion on this area, and kind of we can kind of dive into this, and this might take up the rest of the show and stuff, but talking about like kind of the Riverside area of where I've seen it's such an interesting area. You can do kind of a bunch of different things. I've seen some people just pricing stuff like crazy, some other wholesalers over there right now, and I've seen some things people call in like certain areas, like Indy, Riverside proper is what they're kind of going with in certain areas over there now and things. But so what are you guys seeing? I know, Sterling, we can kind of start with you on this. This is like where you started having some of your first rental properties and stuff in Riverside. And I'm not bashing Riverside at all, because I think there's some good deals over there. So like, I think it's completely like what you just need to be careful, need to know what you're getting into. And if this is your strategy, you can be successful in Riverside, but you can't be like a Fountain Square investor thinking you're going to do the same thing in Riverside or anything like that. So Sterling, kind of what do you think about
before you start, define Riverside for us?
Yeah, so so that's an interesting and probably debatable thing, you know what I mean? Because when I grew up, because I grew up in Riverside, I always considered Riverside to be in like White River Parkway to like maybe that's like 34th Street to just over north of the highway where Dr. Martin Luther King. But as I, have been in the community, and the funny thing is, so I've been raised in Riverside. Like, we moved from Riverside when I was a kid, but my family's been very involved in, the city council and everything with Riverside. So I do have some bias there. But, when I was growing up there, we used to call it 2G. Like, I mean, so yeah, a lot of people don't know. That's the gang affiliation, I guess, the neighborhood gangs of it. Like, so Riverside is just an area, man. Like, I have a passion. But to answer Dave's question, after being on the boards and things like that, Riverside actually stretches all the way past like 38th Street where the IMA, the museum and things are, like that up to Winedale area. That kind of bumps up to Riverside all the way down that 38th to Martin Luther King. And then you go over on the south side, you're right at about 16th Street on the south side is as far as it probably goes.
Goes that far?
Yeah.
I can just tell you from a group, I'm the only one in this group that have ridden the wooden roller coaster at Riverside Park.
Oh, that's a fact, Dave.
You're with your parents.
yeah, like, man, what? No, so like I Brian's absolutely right, but I think it too. You have to be an experienced investor, but also I think you have to understand the development that is happening over in Riverside. A lot of the development is around a couple things. One, the river coming back. As they develop the river, if you see in other cities, that's going to be the thing that drives, what St. Louis and all these other places, even what they're doing in Gary, Indiana, right?
That's a great point.
Is the river, right? The other thing is just the park, right? Like what that looks like and that park. But they're starting to develop with the theater that they're building alongside there, the baseball park, the golf course is shut down. Probably because I kept on like hitting cars as it was going across. I own a house at 2019 East Riverside Drive. I bought for $11,000. I'm holding it in hopes to one day living in it, right? So, but also you see 16 Tech. And I think 16 Tech is an overstated reason why Riverside is good. Like, because I don't think people from 16 Tech are going to live in Riverside. I think 16 Tech people are commuters that their job are putting them in Noblesville. But I do think the other development things that are happening in Riverside is what I like. I don't really like the center of Riverside. North Harding Street has to improve. I think also like I own a house on West 28th Street. I wouldn't say you need to buy in that area. It's worked for me. I bought it for $25,000, rented for $700 for the last 7 years, but not everybody is willing to deal with what I deal with. I can walk in that community. I'm a Black guy. I can talk their language. I can be a part of it. Like I went there yesterday to like nobody's broken in. It's been vacant for for 3 months, but because they know me, you know what I mean? So I just think you have to kind of know what you're dealing with.
So Steve, how about you? You seen anything from like Riverside or have any thoughts on that of things you could maybe investors need to be careful of over there?
I have been, there's been a gentleman, Alex Gifford, who has harped on me for a while to start buying over there. I never pulled the trigger. We were too busy in Fountain Square and Bates Hendricks at the time. And do I think there's positivity going on over there? Absolutely. I was over there not too long ago, looking at some properties, and the park and everything is starting to be redone and things. And there's improvement moving on. I always considered that if you're going to buy over there, you stay south of 28th Street. I think, what's the main road? Boulevard? Is it Boulevard over there?
No, it's Birchall Parkway.
Yeah, like that one. Now that's a beautiful street. Absolutely beautiful. Run east to west. Beautiful. I mean, you find something on there all day long, as far as I care. When you start getting further north, it starts to get a little rougher shape. Harding, yes, absolutely. But there is potential. It's a slow growth. What's going on over there? It's very slow. And if you're willing to park your money and make some cash flow all day long.
Sterling, what are they doing with the park, with the golf course?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Dave. So they have a master plan that they rolled out about 2 years ago, and it's a $100 million project teamed up with citizens and different organizations like that. So the South Grove, which is where the training, like it was more of the teaching golf course, that's getting shut down. They're going to build baseball fields similar to like Westfield over there. Marion College is taking over those baseball fields, so they're going to be like the main sponsor. Utilize that. It's really about partnerships, because as much as we know, Marion is growing, but Marion is landlocked. So being able to have, a baseball field that looks really nice and things is ideal for Marion. You also have like the water park. They're going to completely redo the water park in the community center. So it's very much like what we have in Carmel and Westfield with the water park, where it's inside out, really huge, and just to make more revenue. I think the Indy parks as a whole are just getting more revenue generated versus what they used to be. It used to be more of like a community base and teaching, and that stuff, programming is still going to be there. But I think it's more or less like, hey, Marion, you want to come over and you want to rent, the baseball field and have that as your baseball field? Absolutely. Butler, you want to come over and have the tennis courts? And also they have like, the velodrome over there is getting developed, a lot more walking trails, very similar to like Central Park type feel, because Riverside is actually bigger than like Central Park, is how large it is.
Well, one thing too, just in Marion College, they're a huge buyer right now of real estate around their college for rentals, for future development. So if you have anything within shouting distance of Marion College wholesalers or flippers, don't redo it, call Marion College, and they'll give you probably anywhere from 20 to 30% over value is what I'm saying to get it, even if they're not going to use it for 3 or 4 years.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, they almost had to, you know what I mean? So yeah.
So great stuff, guys. We kind of wrap up this portion of the show and stuff like that. Let's kind of focus on, we got one more kind of little pocket here that we haven't talked about yet, but I think it's kind of maybe worth talking about. So we have like kind of that, like, we talked about kind of the Riverside and the 16 Tech area, but even kind of maybe a little bit east and then south of that, we have kind of the Crispus Adducts and then like the IUPUI area and stuff like that. Is that an area that investors should be looking at, or whether it's to flip a property, or I think of a lot of rentals and stuff like that in that area? Is that worth looking at? What's your opinion on some of that stuff?
Anytime there's residents that need housing for schooling, we've talked to a couple of doctors that's going to be at IUPUI for 2-3 years, and either they're coming in and buying and living there and thinking that they'll keep it, or their parents are coming in and buying it for them, so their kid has good housing for 3 years and they don't have to worry about it, and then they have a piece of real estate. All these areas are, have long-term growth. If you can afford to buy, I'm not a big buy and hold guy, but if you can afford to buy and hold in these areas, you will be well rewarded for that.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. We have several. That's like, I think the street's like East Fall Creek. It's like Fall Creek something, but it's not Fall Creek Parkway like we think about. It's like this little street right there, what you're talking about, Brian. And it's been great for just students. Like, it's a really small house, but it's a 2-3 bedroom. All of them are, and they rent for $1,000+. It's south of 16th Street. It's this huge park right across from like the UPS terminal and things. This street is just, but the thing is, like, it's huge land though too, like the the lot for students, so we have to cut the grass, and it's a little more maintenance on that end. But I mean, it's been great, like what Dave said. I mean, you get student housing, and that's what it is. It's been kind of worth the reward so far.
Those are kind of always the ones that I know I always hear a lot of investors saying like, oh no, I didn't want, a 3-bed, 1-bath, and that's kind of where I cut it off, that typical thing. But there's pockets around, especially in that area, or even kind of some of the stuff that's even kind of maybe even, north of Fall Creek and stuff like that, where the 2-bed, 1-bath, they make sense if they're in that certain area where you can still rent out. So I always tell investors like, hey, don't just write off a 2-bed, 1-bath because it has 2 beds. Like if it's in a certain pocket, like it's great to jump on things. So I like that. I appreciate the fact that you brought that up.
No, you're absolutely
any
right.
last thoughts or anything, man?
No, you guys covered that. I just be repeating things.
All right. Well, sounds good. Well, I really appreciate these gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me today. We the last two episodes, we've kind of taken a look at just some central stuff here in Indianapolis, taking a look at different neighborhoods, different pockets and things like that. So if you have any questions or anything, please feel free to reach out to any of us. Gentlemen, if you don't mind, kind of giving some of your contact information, if somebody doesn't mind reaching out to you. I know they can hit us all up on Facebook and stuff like that as well. But Steve, what's the best place for somebody to contact you if they have any questions about anything we've been going over?
You can reach me at 317-273-3552 or go to the fshouses.com webpage.
Awesome. Dave, how about you, man?
317-590-4499, or you can email me at dshort@c21sheets, SCHEETZ.com.
Awesome. And Sterling?
Yeah, so you can get me at our office line at 888-212-3764. That is 888-212-EPMG. On our website at Ethosity PMG. That's ETHOSITY.PMG.com. So thanks.
Awesome. And you guys can reach out to me. You can give me a Brian at simplewholesaling.com or reach out to me on Facebook. Really easy way to get in touch with me. So thanks a lot for joining us today. And thanks a lot, gentlemen. I really appreciate you guys. And we will see you on the next episode as we talk about some of the east side of Indianapolis, the east side of the downtown, some of those areas in Indianapolis. Thanks a lot.